with Big Mo. Oh, man.
Christopher, you ready?
Are you going to keep boxing?
Yeah.
You really love this shit.
As his brother was being brought out with a broken jaw, Logan Paul broke down in front of the cameras, and nobody was prepared for that portion. So, come back with me, since this was marketed as destiny, control, and the Paul brothers' rewriting of boxing prior to the knockout, silence, and panic. And no, this cannot be true unless you acknowledge that the punch did not cause the ultimate harm. It was the kind of publicity that destroys a brand and leaves everyone reeling. The consequences you experienced were just the beginning, I assure you. Additionally, something more repulsive is ready to shatter beneath.
I just pissed him off. Then he broke my brother's jaw. Fuck this guy. Broke his jaw, huh? Yeah, he split his jaw. Yeah. He don't care though. Jake's having a fucking blast.
Everyone keeps reliving the knockout, but I can't help but focus on the instant that followed because Logan's lack of composure caused the illusion to truly end. He was not calm. He wasn't defensive. He was enraged. Furthermore, Joshua was not the target of that fury. It was directed inside at Jake, the plan, and the narrative that was meant to conclude differently. You can learn more from a brother's reaction than from any press statement. So consider why he acts like a manager whose investment just crashed. Furthermore, I don't believe we've heard the whole story yet. Not even near.
Yeah, it was largely because he was mostly running away from AJ rather than standing toe-to-toe with him to fight. It's the difference between fighting a Bengal tiger and running away from a Bengal tiger.
Logan was speaking as though the outcome was predetermined, which made the confidence seem dangerous even weeks before the battle. Referring to Joshua as a legacy-ender target, washed, and beatable. Furthermore, you're not exaggerating your reputation as a gambler when you talk like that. This is the point at which the tension increases since Logan linked Jake's fists to his own picture. And once that bell rang, branding and brotherhood were inextricably linked. You could sense the strategy falling apart in real time as soon as Jake began backing up.
It is. Oh, the uppercut, and he took it! Jake Paul took it!
Because analysts insisted that influencer boxing ended where heavyweight reality began, everyone purposefully disregarded the warnings that were posted everywhere. But prudence was overpowered by noise. The truth was muffled by clicks. You could see it on Jake's face when Joshua stood calmly and patiently, tense shoulders, stiff legs, and eyes looking for ways out. And all of a sudden, this had nothing to do with belief or confidence. It has to do with surviving. And during that transition, careers silently end before the knockout ever occurs.
Since he quickly realized fighting AJ was not going to work for him, he naturally began incorporating even more flight, running away, and freezing, falling to the ground at any chance he had just to survive the rounds.
I mean, all it's doing is buying Jake Paul more time. I don't like it at all.
Do you remember what Mike Tyson famously said? Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Anthony Joshua's gigantic. So big. He's so big. He's so much bigger. So, of course, like, his punch that he knocks Tyron Woodley out cold with, Joshua just eats it.
Yeah.
Because he's a giant.
Yeah.
He's a fucking giant man.
Then the knockdown began, and belief quickly evaporated since 4 times is confirmation rather than poor luck. Additionally, the combat becomes instructive rather than competitive when a man is dropped so frequently, and it was finished at 131 of the 6th round. Not contested, just finished, not contentious. And there was no astonishment in the silence that ensued. It was acknowledgement. Hype collapses beneath the laws of physics. And there's a reason, I promise, why the cameras focused on Logan rather than the replay right away.
I'm just so proud of him. My mom has me.
Your brother fought his ass off, man. I mean, other heavyweights have taken that right hand and only took one.
I'm just so proud of him. That was incredible. In my view, that was a victory on all fronts.
The statistics made it worse because it is evident that 16 out of 56 punches were delivered by racers rather than brave people. And when the damage report showed that double fractured jaw surgery was required, the argument should have come to an end. But it didn't because Logan became uncontrollable when Jake was brought out, making the actual disturbance emotional. That was not just a worry. That was the collision of anger, fear, and shame. And tell me why nobody is asking what was said off camera at that same moment.
Like, minus the actual victory of it, of course, but bro, like, no one expected him to last 6 rounds with AJ. In my opinion, he won 4 of them. People will argue that he at least won 3. No one expected him to last that long. Rolled his ankle, broke his jaw, still fucking fighting, man. Like, that's toughness.
It was unsettling to see Logan at that time because it didn't appear to be love. Rather, it appeared to be treachery, as if someone had altered a script without permission. Commentators recoiled since this wasn't a cause for concern. In HD, this was a damage control panic. Additionally, you are unable to refrain your trash talk when it is replayed alongside knockout footage. Here's a teaser that continues to irritate me because it doesn't appear to be spontaneous. It seems to be pent up already.
Realistically, it's one of the craziest propositions of all time.
Because pacing, shouting, and trembling don't result from a single blow, backstage reports made it darker. It is the result of realization. The knowledge that the Paul experiment ran into an obstacle that it was unable to overcome. Additionally, it indicates that Logan was attempting to mentally rewrite the incident because the real-life version was unsatisfactory. And no, this cannot be true unless the stakes were much larger than a victory or defeat.
That this YouTuber who's fought Tommy Fury, who's a legit boxer, and a couple other guys that were legit boxers. That's it. Like everyone else he's fought Ben Askren, who's really a wrestler. He fought Tyron Woodley, who was an elite MMA fighter, but, not an elite boxer.
After a few days, the tone changed to something almost comical. Logical conclusion, talent gap, respect, toughness, and thanks all at once. And since rewriting begins right away, that's what occurs when boldness fails. However, the internet never forgets. And after the fact, those previous words, legacy, ender, resonate more loudly. Because the calm seemed forced and the panic was real, this hurt deeper.
And there's some sort of a rehydration clause. Listen, kids, it ain't gonna matter. There's not a chance that Anthony Joshua is not going to just lose the weight beforehand. He's not going to come in drained. What he's going to do is just do extra cardio.
Logan needed Jake to win for the sake of his reputation rather than boxing history, which is why the family angle poisoned this more deeply. Because this brand depends on control, confidence, and spectacle, the foundation trembled when Jake fell. And everything breaks when you lose control on the largest stage. And consider why Logan appeared less like a brother and more like an enraged executive who was witnessing millions of people go because that question makes you uncomfortable.
I think the camp wasn't 100%. Is that accurate?
That's kind of what I was gonna ask. Like, do you feel like it was your best camp?
No, I mean, just because, I was weighing 200 pounds when we confirmed the fight.
The meltdown videos make people chuckle, but I see something different. I notice a caution sign since the sport always gets paid when ego takes precedence over preparedness. Furthermore, heavyweight boxing does not offer refunds. Not only did this conflict reveal Jake, but it also revealed the environment that drove him there. Here's one more time bomb idea. Because if this was permitted once, someone who is currently watching will try it again.
When you wobbled him, I was right there. I don't know if you heard me.
Yeah, I did.
I was like, you wobbled him,
yeah.
go.
Anthony Joshua's confidence was smashed by Skill B's loudness and experience. Therefore, he didn't need to say anything since the aftermath spoke for him. And the distinction between top heavyweight reality and influencer boxing was made with blood and fear. Additionally, lines like those don't vanish once they are drawn. They solidify. Furthermore, I don't think the Paul brothers realize how long-lasting that is just yet.
To get that world-class gas tank, you need a Sam Calavita, you need a Nick Curson, you need these plyometrics experts that who got heart rate monitors on you, and they're checking when your recovery is ready and go.
Yeah.
And you're fucking yeah. You need guys monitoring your recovery, monitoring your heart rate variability, your VO2 max.
The most terrifying aspect is how quickly everything fell apart, because it was instantaneous rather than a slowdown. From control to anarchy, from arrogance to quiet, and that speed reveals the true fragility of the structure. Additionally, additional pieces typically fall later when constructions break in public. And because something feels unfinished, I can't stop worrying which piece will fall next.
You take a guy who just had a boxing match that looks like a sparring match with a 58-year-old Mike Tyson, and then you're going to fight one of the absolute scariest knockout artists in the heavyweight division.
This will be remembered for the knockout, everyone says. However, that is incorrect, since the instant the truth, the fury, the fear, and the exposure were captured on camera will be remembered. Because it wasn't manufactured and wasn't neat, and because brands detest ugly truth more than losses, the story will go away.
I mean, that was a full force shot to the temple. I mean, he's Fucksville right now.
The next update won't be about boxing at all, and when it is, it will be devastating, so I don't trust it at all. The damage isn't only physical, so don't settle for closure because this isn't done. The stillness now feels calculated, like someone is buying time before another shoe drops. Rather than just shattering the Paul tale, this episode, in my opinion, permanently warped it because the public cannot totally eradicate pure fear once it is witnessed instead of practiced assurance. Moreover, far from being a mistake, Logan's collapse was an epiphany, the kind that shows how much pressure is hidden under the bravado. Because if this had only been about brotherly concern, the reaction would have been more subdued, gentle, and protective, rather than swift, erratic, and defensive, as if something precious had just been lost. Furthermore, I think that because Anthony Joshua can knock out the ego, people are underestimating how serious the psychological damage is in this case. It hurts differently to see your brand narrative crumble in real time. Because it was unrelated to the fight, Logan was unduly upset. It is related to losing control. Furthermore, control is crucial to their overall operation. Without it, everything starts to falter. What really sticks with me is how the conversation quickly moved from performance to behavior to image, almost making the fight itself seem unimportant. Additionally, this shows that the sporting event was already unconsciously accepted because the mind turns to consequences as a result that becomes plausible. As a result, there were also no rankings or rematches. It was a loss of credibility, which is far harder to fix than a successful column. I don't think the collected comments made later show approval. They are a symbol of containment, in my opinion, as such a rapid shift in tone usually means that managers, lawyers, and consultants took action to prevent the harm. Freezing damage is also problematic because it indicates that there was originally anything to contain. Furthermore, consumers are smarter than marketers think. They are immediately able to recognize that shift. Nobody wants to admit in public that Joshua and Logan's pressure caused Jake to lose. Because when a fight becomes a family image referendum, the fighter stops being an athlete and becomes a vessel. Veins can also break under pressure, and we observed that. Overload, not timidity or weakness. Furthermore, I am convinced that over time, this scenario will worsen rather than get better. This will be known as the night confidence met consequence, or the warning video, when future influencers try to take the initiative. Additionally, every time Logan's statement is repeated, the lesson that hype doesn't fail quietly will be reinforced. It detonates, leaving behind debris long after the roar has subsided. Because the sport made money, while the participants paid both physically and psychologically, the blurring of enjoyment and danger in this case is very disconcerting. And when that discrepancy is revealed, audiences start to voice moral concerns. Moreover, moral quandaries continue to exist even after they are incorporated into stories about combat sports. Because a shift in expectations is shown when survival is prioritized over competition. Furthermore, if standards are violated, the sport becomes less about quality and more about endurance theater. And that's a slippery slope. History shows that boxing always regrets its past failures. In the end, I think this wasn't just a poor night or a bad game. The Paul experiment was a stress test that resulted in the layers of irony and confidence being stripped away. And when those layers are removed, what's left is incredibly human and vulnerable. And that vulnerability is now visible to all. This suggests that occurrences in the future will be perceived differently examined more closely, and forgiven far less.